A young man was losing his grandmother. She was in late-stage cancer in the hospital, and he was spending time with her one day and could tell that she wasn't liking the lunch that the hospital provided that day. And he said, "Graham, what can I get you?" And she said, "Honey, you know what I would love? I would love a bowl of that clam chowder from Panera." So he went to the nearest Panera and asked for the clam chowder, and they said, "Oh, we don't have that today." But when the person at the counter saw his face, she said, "Let me talk to my manager." And the manager, Sue, came forward and heard about his grandmother, and she said, "Give me 2 hours and come back." And he went back 2 hours later, and there waiting for him was a big bowl of that soup and a box of cookies. And she handed it to him and said, "This is on us. Just tell your grandmother that we love her." Last week, we were talking about shining the light inside of us so that there's no hidden pockets that we're unaware of. And we talked about the symbolism of godparents being given the candle that is lit from the light of Christ. We say, receive the light of Christ so that you can go on a spiritual journey, which doesn't just take place outside. Most of that is done within. Today we're talking about, once we've been on that journey, how can we become lit up enough that we become bright enough for others to see by? What can we do to become more illuminated so that there is more kindness, more brightness in the darkness? In the gospel today, we get to hear a vulnerable moment for John the Baptist, because John the Baptist, from the time he was in his mother's womb, was always saying that Jesus was the Messiah. Remember, he leapt in his mother's womb when she came near her cousin, Mary. He always has been the one proclaiming that Jesus is the Messiah. But now he's suffering. He's in jail, and things are really hard for him. And he sends a very sad, kind of desperate message to Jesus from jail. And the message is, please don't play me. Are you the one or not? Please just let me know clearly, because I've been waiting my whole life for you. And if you're not the one, let me move on to someone else. And Jesus says, John, by my words alone, you could never know. But what do you see in my actions? What do you see by the way I live? What do you see in the way I preach God's word or the miracles that I perform? Words alone can't do it. But if you see my actions being the actions of the Messiah, then you know. If I am so lit up that you know that I am the light of the world, then there's no question. Mother Teresa was once asked, "What is holiness?" And her answer was just perfect. She said, "Holiness is when your inside and your outside match. When your inside and your outside are aligned. When the values that you hold dear inside yourself are on display in the way you live, that's holiness. When your behavior takes its commands from your soul, and it's your soul that determines what you do, that's holiness. When our actions reflect what is most dear, what is most valuable, what is most important, that is what it means to be holy. I am happy to tell you that we are in a parish where there are a lot of holy people. And a good example of that is the fact that probably every one of us here holds the value that if someone is hungry, they ought to be fed. All of us believe that. All of us would say, if I have food in my fridge and there's someone hungry, It's a moral imperative. I've got to do something about that. All of us share that. But there are some people in our parish who then go to the food pantry and volunteer there. They go there every Friday. Their belief that we need to end hunger is put into action in their lives. And I've got to tell you, if you ever see them on a Friday when the clients come for the food, none of those clients ever wonder if the people there are the real thing. Are you real believers? Are you really Christians? They never wonder. It's on display. It's not showy, but it's very clear that what they say they believe and what they believe are the same. The same is true about our school. So many of us are so proud of our school. And a lot of us, I'm looking out at people who graduated from there. Some people went there K-12. Other people have grandchildren there or have a connection there. We have a lot of teachers that are worshiping with us here. But there is a group of about 20, 25 of us that go there to volunteer as librarians and do a full shift as librarians at the school. No one ever wonders, yeah, but do you really love this school? No one ever questions. And the kids are never questioning, yeah, but do you care about me? When they go there, many of them grandparents, some of them in their 90s, go over there to read to the kids. No one ever questions, do you care? They are so lit up. Their choices illuminate what they value. And a lot of you may, as you hear me say this, say, Father, ouch, low blow. Like, I am in a busy stage of my life. I work. I can't be doing all the things that you just said. That's stuff that I feel like people with a little more time than I have can do. But a woman told me a story about something that happened in the parking lot. She said that one day she pulled up and a man had pulled into a spot with a giant puddle in it. Now, if you know our parking lot, you know that there are parts of it that after a rain are pretty puddly. And we would love to do something about that. The truth is we, have some other fish we got to fry first. But when the time comes to redo the parking lot, eliminating the puddles will become an important thing that we'll do. But even the best of parking lots often have little puddle areas. So this man parked in the middle of a puddle. And when the woman saw that, and she saw that there were lots of other spaces that didn't have puddles, she ran up to him and she said, "Sir, why don't you just pull up here? I don't know if you noticed, but your spot is right in the middle of a huge puddle." And he smiled and he said, "I know that. I chose this spot because of the puddle." He said, "I have waterproof shoes, and a lot of other people don't. And if somebody doesn't take this spot, it's going to be the last one left over when all the other spots are taken. And somebody who worked really hard to get here at the last minute is going to have to pull into that spot, and their feet are going to get wet." And he said, "I've got the shoes that won't happen. I planned for this." I don't know about you, but I was blown away by that because I would never do that. I always choose the spot that is the closest to where I'm going, the most convenient, the best, the most optimal spot. And as I pull into that spot, I kind of have this feeling like, ha, everybody, you snooze, you lose. It's all mine. But we don't even need lights in our parking lot with people like that. He illuminates the parking lot with his goodness. No one even knows. If that woman hadn't said something to him, nobody would have known that that's something he does when he comes to church. Interestingly, living life this way is really the best way there is to work on our self-esteem. Because a lot of us have our self-esteem based on things that we have no control over. Like, I don't like my nose in pictures, or I don't like the weight that I am, or I wish I made more money, or I don't like the neighborhood I live in. And we base it on stuff that is somewhat outside of our control. But if we base our self-esteem on the way we treat others, we can really like ourselves. I don't know who that man is. It was told to me secondhand. But he has every reason to like himself. He has every reason to think, I'm the kind of person that makes the world better. I do it in quiet ways. I like the way that I am. I like the choices I make. I like the kind of world that I create around me. He doesn't have to have low self-esteem because of some factor in his life that's outside of his control. If he bases it on the way he treats people, and he treats people like that, he can feel really good about himself. So this week, we are being asked, where am I my brightest? Where am I my shiniest? What corner of the world do I brighten up? And how do I do it? Is there anybody who would be able to say that they bask in light that I shine? Whenever I'm sitting with a family preparing for a funeral, we'll be talking about the loved one who's passed, and every once in a while, I'll hear someone say about their mother or their father, she lit up a room. When he walked in, he lit up the room. And that always strikes me as such a beautiful thing to say about somebody. You don't need any description of what they mean by that. They lit up the room. And you know, you've known people like that who aren't necessarily the life of the party type. You don't have to be a big extrovert to light up the room. Some of the quietest people are the ones who come in and light up the room. Is there a room that you light up? Is there a way that you could take a page out of the book of the people who work at the food pantry, or volunteer at the school, or park in the puddle, or the ones who would naturally take the burnt piece of toast off the platter because they're fine with it and it saves someone else who would really care about that from having the disappointment? Interestingly, that Panera that did the act of kindness for the grandmother, the family wrote about it on the Facebook page of that Panera, and it went viral. It got 800,000 likes. And what really struck me was that thousands of people wrote letters, handwritten letters, to that Panera to thank them for the kindness. People who had absolutely no connection to the story other than hearing about it. Why does that happen? Because that's the kind of world we all want to live in. That's the kind of place we want to be, where people would do something like that for someone who's in the middle of a sad time. It's going beyond the basics to really light up the world. That Panera lit up that woman's hospital room and lit up the community. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want in our own lives. So let's choose to do that. Let us light up the world with the light that we shine, so that others may see by that light.